You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
You're listening to DolphinsTalk.com Daily, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet. Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the...
Good morning, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to DolphinsTalk.com Daily on this Friday, August the 14th. I am your host, Mike, and we got a great show for you today. On today's podcast, I am joined by Ruthie Polinsky of NBC6 in South Florida. This is Ruthie's first year covering the Miami Dolphins, and we talked to her about, all things Miami Dolphins, about Tua Tagovailoa and what that draft pick meant to the Miami Dolphins organization, and, what his 2020 might be and when he might see the field and such. We also talk about all the Miami Dolphins rookies because they have so many young players on this team and so many draft picks. In this oddball type of offseason with no preseason games, no mini camps and such, when they might see the field and how that might work this year, sort of phasing them in over time instead of just throwing them out there right away. And we also talk about the former Patriots currently on the Dolphins. Everybody from, the head coach Brian Flores, Kyle Van Noy, Elandon Roberts, Ted Karras, because Ruthie, prior to covering the Dolphins, used to cover the Patriots up in Rhode Island. So she knows all these guys, and she has been covering them for years. So we get her insight and get her thoughts on those guys now with Miami. And, is that Patriots way starting to creep its way into South Florida with the Dolphins? It's a great interview. You're all going to love it, and there's so much good information. And, everyone stay tuned for that. But before we get to that interview, 2 bits of housekeeping. Number one, as I announced on the podcast earlier this week, we have another contest on our website where the prize is you can win a Larry Zonka autographed mini helmet. Everyone head to the website and check out the information. Of course, head to the website, DolphinsTalk.com, or head to my Twitter feed at DolphinsTalk. All the information on what you need to do to enter for the opportunity to win a Larry Zonka autographed mini helmet. Number 2, the book, 100 Things Dolphins Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die, written by Armando Salguero of the Miami Herald, with a foreword written by Jason Taylor. If you buy the book on our website, it will be released on September 8th, so about 3 to 4 weeks away. If you buy the book on our website and you put in the promo code Dolphins Talk, you save 25% off the price of the book. The book is about $16 and change. Use our promo code and knocks it down to about $12 and change. So you're going to want to buy the book at our website with the promo code and save a little bit of money. So everyone check that out there. Why, put in your pre-order now, because on September 8th, you're going to want the book in your hands. So if you order it now, A, you can save a little bit of money, and B, it'll be at your mailbox waiting for you out on September 8th. So there's that. Right now, I'm going to take a quick break, and after the break, I'll be joined by Ruthie Polinsky of NBC6 in South Florida to talk all things Miami Dolphins. So everyone sit tight, and we'll be back after this.
DolphinsTalk.com is your one-stop for all things Miami Dolphins. With news, commentary, video, interviews, and the Webby Award-winning DolphinsTalk.com daily podcast, DolphinsTalk.com has you covered on all of the latest happenings surrounding the Miami Dolphins. Whether it's training camp, the draft, free agency, or the current Miami Dolphins season, DolphinsTalk.com has it covered. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at DolphinsTalk and to visit the website, DolphinsTalk.com, each and every day. That's DolphinsTalk.com.
Joining me on the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is Ruthie Polinsky from NBC6 South Florida. Ruthie, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks so much for having me. We finally get to
I
chat
know.
some Dolphins football.
I know. We've been
Perfect
trying to set
timing.
this. I know we've been trying to set this up for a while, so I'm glad we found some time. And you're sort of new to the South Florida area. How are you liking life in South Florida? Because I know prior to this you were up in Rhode Island and that part of the world. A little bit of a culture shock, I'm sure.
Well, it's funny. I moved here the first week of March. So my first
God.
week on the job was the week that the NBA shut down. So, and then obviously everything followed suit after that. So it's definitely been a little bit of a different transition to move to a new city in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to have the beach and sunshine, and I've really been liking South Florida, and obviously the teams here have been really exciting to cover so far. So it's been a good transition, definitely different transition. I'm excited to actually experience South Florida maybe one day when things open up.
I know. Yeah, I know. I don't live down there, but I travel down there a handful of times a year for the Miami Dolphins games and such.
Yes.
And I'm not there right now. And South Florida is a beautiful place, beautiful in many ways. But right now, I can't imagine being down there. I'm sure it's with the pandemic. How did you handle the pandemic? Were you just sort of locked up in your home or wherever just for all those weeks? Or
yeah, so I've actually been very fortunate to been able to work from home. The station got me set up to be able to kind of be on TV and anchor my sportscast from home when necessary. And then, when certain things have been happening, for example, when the Heat left to go to Orlando, I was able to kind of go to AAA and watch the buses drive away. There have been certain events where I've been able to kind of been out in the field a little bit safely and been able to cover these teams to an extent. And then every press conference that we do with any team has just all been via Zoom. And I think it's going to be that way for the foreseeable future. Even when Dolphins camp starts next week and the media is given access, we'll be able to sit and watch practice, but all the Zoom availability with Coach Flores and with the players will all be via Zoom.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a different age of sports media and sports coverage. And I think it may forever be changed, unfortunately, which we'll have to see kind of how it plays out.
Yeah, I think so as well. I've been on a few of those Zoom calls with the Miami Dolphins, and it's just not the same. It's just a little bit different. Is what it is, though. That's the way of the world, I guess, and we'll all have to adjust. Let's talk some football, though. So prior to coming to Miami, you covered the Patriots some, and obviously up there with Brian Flores. He's now down here in Miami. When you covered them, when you were on the Patriots beat, what were your thoughts about Flores? Did you see him as a potential future NFL head coach? And what are your thoughts on him overall since he has come to Miami and been in this role now for a year?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I see so much of New England. Now that I'm really here and kind of getting to learn him as a head coach, I see so much of Bill in him in a lot of good ways and a lot of different ways. And I think it's been really interesting to kind of see his transition. Listen, when you talk to any of the Patriot players, which we would do before they played the Dolphins last year when Flo was the head coach of the Dolphins, any of the Patriots defensive players, Devin McCourty especially, Duron Harmon especially, those are the guys that'll tell you this man was meant to be a head coach. He just is so he connects so well with his players, and he's so football smart that they just love him as a man, as a coach, and they think he's going to be really successful. And I think what we saw last year, especially at the end of the season with the Dolphins, and the way that this team kind of shifted things around despite all of the turmoil over the course of the year, like that team wasn't playing for anything at the end of the year except for Flo in a lot of ways. And I think they were just really bought in to what he was doing. And that's the key at the end of the day. As long as you get your players bought into your philosophy and your culture, then that's how you win, in my opinion. And I think we've seen that time and time again with the Patriots. So I have always been a big Flo fan. I said from day one when he got this job that was a smart move. And I think we're going to see this transformation of this franchise under his leadership. And I'm really, really excited for it.
Yeah, it was exciting last year. Obviously, the first part of the season, wasn't it? When they were 0-7 and losing, 59-10, 42-6, whatever it was. That was a little rough.
Team away.
Same old Dolphins. But as the year went on, and as the year went on, we started to see some things start to click in the players, and on the field, you start to see the results. And obviously, that last game of the year, the one at the Patriots, when it sort of all came together in that final drive, big win, hurt the Patriots, which is always fun to do. That was really a big thing. And this offseason, we saw 3 players come down from New England and join the Dolphins with Kyle Van Noy, Elandon Roberts, and Ted Karras. Do you think in this type of offseason where there's been, no mini camps, limited training camp stuff so far, and, having 3 guys who have sort of worked with him before, been with the Patriots, does that help them now being in Miami sort of speed up the timeline of, even though they haven't been in Miami at all yet, they can, they know where the head coach, they know him, they know where he's coming from, and sort of speed up that stuff where there's been such limited stuff this offseason?
Absolutely. I think it's so interesting when he got those 3 guys in particular, especially Kyle. I mean, Kyle was a very typical Bill Belichick find, right? He was a diamond in the rough. He gets him to New England and figures out what he's good at, which is classic Patriots, and makes him a superstar. And then Kyle's like, bye, I'm going to go get paid. And then he comes to Miami where he knows Flo, and he learned under Flo and grew under Flo while bringing that New England culture and kind of that all-in mentality, football mentality, team-first mentality. Those are all things that I think Flo was absolutely looking for when he went into this offseason. Same thing with Ted Karras, who's just a good human being. And Elandon Roberts, who's a guy that played literally every position on the field last year. So he's just a versatile, tough,
he's a football player
guy.
He's a football player.
Football player. Yep. And exactly. And so I think getting those guys in here is just going to establish those kinds of veterans and establish that kind of culture and mentality and philosophy. Like that is just going to help Flo make this transition. And we talk about Flo, turning this franchise around. And I think getting his guys in here, the kind of football players that he wants in here, is going to be crucial. And we saw that happen this offseason, especially with those 3 guys from New England.
Absolutely. And of course, the big name this offseason that the Miami Dolphins added was a quarterback with Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, Tua mania running wild right now in South Florida with the Dolphins fan base. It's crazy. What were your thoughts on the pick? And do you have a lot of concerns with his injury history? Because I know at the time of the draft, now it seems like it's so long ago the draft, but at the time of the draft, there were some people who thought maybe they should take him and go with Justin Herbert. I had on Mike Tannenbaum a few days prior to the draft. He's telling me Herbert's the way to go. Herbert. Maybe he was putting up a smoke screen. Who knows? He could have been. Who knows? But what were your thoughts on the pick, and what are your thoughts on him overall with his injury history and such?
I was all in on Tua from day one. I wanted Tua. I thought it was the right pick. And now I think the way that this offseason has gone, he's had so much extra time to just rehab and get healthy that it was like almost, in some ways it was ideal for him. What I think will hurt him, and I think maybe the Dolphins in general, because they are just like a brand new team with so many offseason additions, so many draft picks, they not having a preseason and just kind of getting thrown onto the field, not really having a full training camp with 14 padded practices before they play a real football game. I think for the teams that are trying to find their identity, it's going to be, this offseason is going to be tough, particularly for the rookies, particularly for Tua, and just not being able to see the field. However, what I think this does benefit him is just to have that extra time to rehab and get healthy and limit his injury risk from the get-go, right? Like they haven't even touched each other yet on the field. So, so it's really given him some extra time to learn football and learn the NFL, maybe from a studying standpoint. But not being able to get on the field, has its pros and cons, especially for a player like him that does have a past of injury. But I'm really excited about him. I think he's a really good kid and a really good football player, and he is a superstar. Justin Herbert, I don't know if you're a superstar, but we know that Tua is a superstar, and we saw him make huge plays and win really big games, and that's what this franchise needed. And that's what I think they hope they'll see from him for years and years to come. And when I talk to the players and to the coaches about Tua, and especially Fitzy, I mean, Fitzy has no one's Tua's bigger fan than Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that I think speaks to his character and the way that he behaves himself around the team. I think he's a really likable guy. He gets people to rally around him. He's that locker room spokesperson, which is what you need in a quarterback. Listen, I spent the last 3 seasons covering Tom Brady. I'm not trying to draw parallels necessarily yet between Tua and Tom Brady, but I saw how that kind of leadership can make or break a team. And you have to have that kind of personality, in my opinion, to be able to be really successful when it's the most important position on the field.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited about Tua. We get to hear from him at 11:30 today. So
I will be on that call. I will be on that call watching. So yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun. Yeah, it'll be fun. And look, they've needed a face of the franchise for the longest time.
Yeah.
They've needed it for 20 years. They've needed it. There's been guys who come in who've been very good players, like a Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor type, and they're nice and they're good players, even in the Hall of Fame. But they needed a legitimate superstar face of the franchise, especially a quarterback, because that is really the big position. And they finally got it. So hopefully it all works out. And I think, everyone's excited. When he'll get on the field, nobody knows, but it will be exciting this year to follow and see how long it takes him until he gets on the field, if he gets on the field this year, and what happens. A lot of rookies on this team. Obviously, 5 picks in the first 2 rounds. And with this type of offseason, it's been tough. How much do you see the rookies, and specifically on the offensive line? Because last Saturday, I believe, offensive line coach Steve Marshall spoke to the press, and, he was talking about getting the rookies out there. And he's like, even when there are, in a regular offseason, sometimes you're worried and it's tough. And so how much will the rookies contribute this season, you think? How much early on in the season will they contribute? What are your take on the rookies?
Yeah, not having a preseason and a true training camp hurts the rookies more than anyone, just because the speed of the game and the size of the game is so vastly different from college, let alone the rules and the penalties and the, trying to learn all the nitty gritty stuff that comes with being an NFL player, and not having a preseason to really experience that firsthand and make those mistakes, then I think is going to hurt them. I don't know how quickly Flo is going to be able to throw those rookies out there. Listen, I'm not a head coach for a reason, so I'm not going to sit here and tell him what I think he should do. But I do think that there's going to be an adjustment period for this team. Are we going to throw those rookies out week 1 against the New England Patriots?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I doubt it.
That's tough, right? So there's definitely going. I would hope that we got to, I'm thinking in my head, we just got to get a full NFL season in here. But at the same time, I think that, we'll see those rookies get integrated in, because these are Flo's guys, and he wants to play them and he wants to win now. And he drafted, 5 players in the first 2 rounds for a reason. So it's going to be an adjustment, and I think maybe we'll see a lot of mistakes and a lot of things come up, but that's how you learn, and you got to kind of just be patient, I think, when you're throwing all these new players in the mix.
I think it's going to be a phasing in process for some of these guys. Some might get on the field right away. I think someone like Raekwon, his last name slipped. Yep. I think he can get on the field right away just because of where he plays. I think with the offensive linemen, with Noah, it might take him a few weeks till they're on the field. They might have to phase them in over time just because, it's a lot. It's a lot this offseason.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Prior to Miami, you covered the Patriots, so the Patriots as well as anybody. They've lost a lot. I mean, let's be honest. People can say they're still the Patriots, and in some ways they are because they have the head coach. He's still there. But on the field, they've lost a lot of people.
For sure.
Do you think is there still that mystique around the Patriots right now, or are they just one of the other teams in the league? Because it's not the same team that we've known for 20 years.
When Bill Belichick is the head coach of the New England Patriots,
They always got a shot,
there
right?
will always be the mystique. There is no one that knows football and the game better than that man. And there's no one who knows how to coach guys up and figure out what his team is good at. And what I think is so remarkable about Bill Belichick, and I'm not going to sit here and sing his praises to all these Dolphins fans, but what is so remarkable about him is that he changes and adapts his game plan every single week based on the opponent. And that's what he's so good at, because no one ever knows what to expect. And I think the Cam Newton situation, listen, if he can be healthy and if he's still that same guy that we've seen be the MVP, that's scary. That's a little scary. And I think to give Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels kind of that creative freedom with a quarterback is something they've been waiting to do maybe for 20 years. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he's integrated in. And same with Jarrett Stidham. I think that's an athletic kid and a guy that has a bright future. Is he going to play this year? I'm not sure. I don't think anyone really knows. The Patriots are saying it's an open quarterback competition, as they do every year, even with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the mystique is there. They're always going to be the Patriots. It's always, as long as Bill Belichick is the head coach. And that's a guy that just is the master of game planning and rules and clock management and just the little tiny things that have been able to win him games, for 2 decades. So
yeah, I know. And he just turned, he just turned 68 years old. So you do start to wonder how much more he's got left. Now, was he a nightmare to cover up there? Because it seems like when he talks to the press, I mean, he gives you nothing, which I know, but how was he with like the local media? Was he like a little better with the local media? Was it tough? Was it always pulling teeth? No, it was just bad, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, local media is the same as the national media. I mean, like we would get the same access as everyone else with him. And, he would have good days and bad days. Like when he was in a good mood, he would answer questions. When he was not in a good mood and didn't want to talk about things. And listen, the drama has followed that team for as long as anyone can remember. So like, it's not always fun conversations that you got to ask the head coach, but someone's got to ask the questions. But he is the master of answering them and making you feel really stupid about asking it. So I just kind of reminded myself, and I had to do the same thing with Tom Brady too. I went to Michigan. I grew up a diehard Michigan fan. And I always rooted for Tom Brady even before covering the Patriots. So I had to remind myself, especially early on, like, these are human beings that just play football, like they are just people. So like, you kind of got to ground them when you're dealing with guys like Bill Belichick and be like, I'm just trying to learn things here. I just want to ask you questions about, the opponent because I really genuinely want to learn and I really want to. So that was kind of my mentality as I covered him. And same with Brady. But I will say that it's a nightmare. Yeah, it's not fun necessarily. The Bill Belichick press conferences are never a fun time. It wasn't like a blast. We were sitting there being like, wow.
You won't be there long. That's the thing. You can make your lunch plans around him. He ain't going to talk for long and every answer is going to be short. He ain't going to be there long. He ain't going to pontificate. Clearly.
Exactly.
And with Tom Brady, what was hilarious, he was there for like 20 years. 20 years, and, he tap danced around every question that you ever answered. He leaves, he goes on the Howard Stern show and does an hour and a half where he answered everything. It's like, what just happened? It's like, what just happened?
Oh, he'll do that. He would do that occasionally with various people in the media. Same with Jeff Darlington. He did that sit down, I think it was before a Super Bowl, talking about, is this it? Like, what is the chance that you retire after this game? And Tom Brady held up the 0, and like, I think, he would have those moments where he would kind of get transparent with people and ask and say certain things with his guys. There were those people that were his guys. And the Howard Stern show was definitely interesting, but, he still didn't answer everything the way that we wanted to hear. Like, what was going on with you and Bell? What happened with Jimmy Garoppolo? Like, what were the little things that drove you out of there? And I think, in the end of the day, I'm really happy for Tom. I think that he's really happy. I think change is good for everyone. And it looks like he's having a lot of fun in Tampa Bay. And he'll be the first one to tell you that it's not necessarily. A lot of players in New England will say, this is work. This is a job. Like, it's fun to play football, but you go to New England to work and do your job. And so I think for Tom to be able to just go throw a football around like he's in the backyard with Gronk and all these talented wide receivers is going to be a blast for him. So you can tell when he talks in his interviews that he's excited and happy and appreciating the change.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple more questions. I'll let you go here because I know you got to get to that interview there with Tua. You mentioned Michigan, that you went to Michigan. I mean, you got to be heartbroken over the news that there's going to be no Michigan football this fall. I am a Syracuse guy. We're going to play as of now, I guess. Who knows? That could change by tomorrow. I'm going to be able to see them. But being you went to Michigan and all that stuff, that's got to be tough, right?
Yeah, I can't criticize the decision because, there's so much unknown about this virus. And for people to say, we want to play it safe here, I get it. I understand that. Do I feel heartbroken for the seniors that want, I covered this kid, Kwity Paye. He's from Rhode Island. He's a defensive end at Michigan. He could have gone to the draft last year, but he chose to come back to Michigan, potentially really help his draft stock, and he wanted to graduate and he wanted to play his senior year, and to not have that, especially now for these kids that are for sure going to get drafted, he was on every watch list. Everyone's like, look out for this athletic kid, Kwity Paye. He was on every watch list. He was really out there to prove himself, and now you don't get to play your senior season at Michigan, go right into the draft. If it's just heartbreaking for these kids that have worked and sacrificed so much to play for, there's nothing like college sports. We love college sports because you're playing for your teammates, like you're playing for nothing other than a school and a spirit. And there's nothing like college sports because of the way that those kids play. And I think it's just a tough situation, and at the end of the day, you have to respect the medical experts and the people who are put in charge to make these decisions. We're put in charge for a reason.
Listen to them.
I think with the University of Miami, at least, Manny Diaz has been telling us, we are led by Dr. Julio Frank, an expert in the field, so they feel really comfortable with the protocols in place, and he's their leader and they're going to listen to him. And same with the ACC. I think he's advising the ACC a bit too. And it's just kind of going to be a one day at a time situation, whether their season's postponed, if they end up having it at all. Right now it's, business as usual. And, I'm bummed. I'm bummed for Michigan. I'm bummed for the Big Ten. And, you think about Justin Fields and it's just, the whole thing is a mess. But
that's a lot of big games that we're not going to see. I know it's a lot of big games with the Big Ten and the Pac-12. You know what? I can't knock them for being overly cautious because this is life or death in some ways. But and plus these other conferences that are going to play, they're going to start the season. Who knows if they'll finish them? So who knows? It's a mess. It's a mess. Right. Okay, last question for you.
Yeah.
How many wins for the Dolphins in 2020? What's your prediction? Come on, Ruthie. You got to go on the record.
Oh my gosh, I'm scared.
I still think between 5 and 7. I'll go first. I think they're going to win between 5 and 7. Just assuming that they play a whole season, obviously. I think there's so many new players, so many moving parts. I think on the offensive side of the ball, there's a lot of moving parts. I think it might take them a few games or like a month to get their feet wet. I still say between 5 and 7, but I think the future is really bright, though, because they have the right people in and they have so many young players. It just might take them a year.
Yeah, I'm going to go 7 or more.
Okay.
I'm going to say 7. I'm going to say 7 games. I don't have the schedule in front of me right now. The travel is brutal. And I think that's also very interesting when you think about, the pandemic. But because we saw, with baseball, it was when they started traveling that they started having problems. But I think with the travel is brutal. It's a brand new team. A lot of moving parts, a lot of integrating pieces. Do we see Tua? How's Ryan Fitzpatrick this year? there's a lot. I think on the defensive side of the ball, they could be lights out. They have the pieces to be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, if Davian Howard can get healthy, they have Byron Jones, you know, Kyle Van Noy, all these great pieces on the defensive side of the ball, which is, you know, Flo's go-to. That's Flo's love language. So I think I'm going to say 7 or more. It's a little aggressive on my part.
No. You know what?
But they're going to be in the mix for the division. I think the division is wide open.
That's what I was just going to say.
You know, Buffalo, I think Buffalo may stand out to me right now, adding Diggs and that whole piece is good. And they have a lot of carryover. These teams that are basically the same team from last year that added a piece here and there, they're at an advantage because, you know, they did it last year. You know, for teams like the Dolphins who don't get a preseason, don't really have an off season, that's tough. It's going to be tough.
It's not the same AFC East anymore. It's all different. The landscape changed in the AFC East. And then you got the Jets, who've just lost everybody at this point. They're a little bit of a mess.
Jets. I've kind of
You're
forgotten
lucky not to cover Adam Gase. Talk about fun.
Yeah.
Adam Gase, something else. So, Ruthie, thanks so much for a few moments of your time. Everyone, be sure to watch Ruthie Polinsky on NBC6 in South Florida and follow her on Twitter at Ruthie Polinsky. Now, Ruthie, I saw when I was doing research, you covered the St. Louis Cardinals. They won a World Series. You covered the Red Sox. They won a World Series. You covered the Patriots. They won a couple Super Bowls. We need this Ruthie luck on the Dolphins. You guys seem to have luck. Wherever you
the
go.
Bruins in the Stanley Cup.
Exactly.
I covered the Celtics
I'm talking about wins.
Conference Finals.
I know. Yeah. I want the wins, though. Yeah. And Miami, you know, look, I'm not that old, but I ain't getting any younger. And I got to see a Dolphins Super Bowl before I die. So this Ruthie luck's got to rub off on the Dolphins. You got to make that happen for me.
I hope so, Mike. You know, I people tell me that a lot. You know, people tell me like, we need this Ruthie Polinsky luck. But I was in New England where they win a lot anyway. But I will say that you know, and I'm from St. Louis. The Blues won the Stanley Cup last year, which I got to cover when I was with the Bruins. So I've really kind of gotten to see a lot of winning. I'm hoping to see the same here. And there is a lot of hype in this market right now when you talk about sports with the Dolphins, just kind of the rebuild. And then you have the Heat that are just awesome. And the Marlins, I mean,
Marlins are winning.
The Marlins start winning. So
don't know how or why, but they're winning.
Give me a little credit there. So
I know.
I hope so, Mike. I hope so.
I hope so. Ruthie, thanks so much. And this was a lot of fun, and I'm glad we finally found some time to meet up.
Yeah, anytime. We'll do this during the season, too, for sure.
Absolutely. You have a good day.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Yep. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. Be sure to visit DolphinsTalk.com every day for all of your latest Miami Dolphins news.